ॐ श्रीकृष्ण शरणं मम गोपिका जीवनस्मरणं गोविन्दा गोविन्दा सद्गुरुनाथ महाराज की जय। शुक्लां भरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। नमो नमः सद्गुरुभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो नमः सद्गुरुभ्यो नमो नमः। सच्चिदानन्दरूपाय विश्वोत्पत्त्यादिहेतवे तापत्रय विनाशाय श्रीकृष्णाय वयं नुमः। यं प्रव्रजन्तमनुपेतमपेतकृत्यं द्वैपायनो विरह कातर आजुहाव पुत्रेति तन्मयतया तरभोभिनेदुः तं सर्वभूतहृदयं मुनिमानतोऽस्मि। यस्वानुभावमखिलश्रुतिसारमेकम् अध्यात्मदीपमतितीर्षतां तमोन्धं संसारिणां करुणयाः पुराणगुह्यं तं व्याससूनुमुपयामि गुरुं मुनीनां। योगीन्द्राय नमस्तस्मै शुकाय ब्रह्मरूपिणे संसारसर्पदष्टं यो विष्णुरातममुमुचत कालव्यालमुखग्रास त्रासनिर्नाशहेतवे श्रीमद्भागवतं शास्त्रं कलौकीरेण भाषितम् एतस्मादपरं किञ्चित् मनःशुद्ध्यै न विद्यते जन्मान्तरे भवेत् पुण्यं तदा भागवतं लभेत् ज्ञानवैराग्यसम्पूर्णान् हरिभक्तिपरायणान् पूर्वाचार्यातहं वन्दे सम्प्रदायप्रवर्तकान् भगवन्नाम साम्राज्य लक्ष्मी सर्वस्व विग्रहं श्रीमद्बोधेन्द्र योगीन्द्र देशिकेन्द्रम् उपास्महे। Sorry, lost the thing. Oh, sorry everyone. कलिकालोचितं धर्मं नाम संकीर्तनात्मकं निर्णेतुमवतीर्णं तं प्रेमिकं सद्गुरुं भजे। हरे रामेति कृष्णेति नाम संकीर्तनं सदा लोकक्षेमाय कुर्वन्तं प्रेमिकं सद्गुरुं भजे। जन्माद्यस्य यतोऽन्वयात् इतरतश्चार्तेष्वभिज्ञस्वराट् तेने ब्रह्महृदाय आदिकवये मुह्यन्ति यत्सूरयः तेजो वारिमृदां यथा विनिमयो यत्र त्रिसर्गो मृषा धाम्ना स्वेन सदा निरस्तकुहकं सत्यं परं धीमहि धर्मः प्रोज्झितकैतवोऽत्र परमो निर्मत्सराणां सतां वेद्यं वास्तवमत्र वस्तु शिवदं तापत्रयोन्मूलनं श्रीमद्भागवते महामुनिकृते किं वा परैरीश्वरः सद्यो हृद्यवरुध्यतेऽत्र कृतिभिः शुश्रूषिभिस्तत्क्षणात् निगमकल्पतरोर्गलितं फलं शुकमुखात् अमृतद्रवसंयुतं पिबत भागवतं रसमालयं मुहुरहो रसिका भुवि भावुकाः नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। श्रीमद्भागवताख्योऽयं प्रत्यक्षः कृष्ण एव हि स्वीकृतोऽसि मया नाथ मुख्यर्थं भवसागरे मनोरथो मदीयोऽयं सफलः सर्वदा त्वया निर्विघ्नेनैव कर्तव्यो दासोऽहं तव केशव। श्रीहरये नमः। हरये नमः। श्रीहरये नमः। गोपिका जीवनस्मरणं गोविन्दा गोविन्दा सद्गुरुनाथ महाराज की जय। Welcome everyone. Hey Priya. Okay, so looks like a bunch of them are going to be a few minutes late, but we'll get going anyways. So the previous one we have to review from 15 to 39, 25 plus here some 12, so 37, 18. Okay, so I think whoever wants, maybe Vijay or Shobha, if you want to do like the 2.1 15 to maybe 33, and then the rest other can do the till?
I want to try, Rajesh, for whatever
Okay.
I know. Yeah, thank you.
Go ahead, Shobha. So I think in the 2.1 la வந்து 15 ல இருந்து ஆரம்பிக்கும்.
Yes. अंतकाले तु पुरुष आगदे गद सात्वसः चिन्त्याद संगशास्त्रेण स्पृहां देहे हेनु ये च तं गृहात् प्रवृजितो धीरः पुण्यतीर्थ जलाप्लुतः शुचौ विविक्त आसीनो विधिवत् कल्पितासने अभ्यसेन् मनसा शुद्धं त्रिवृत् ब्रह्माक्षरं परं मनो यच्चेज्जिदश्वासो ब्रह्म बीजमविस्मरन् नियच्चेद् विषयेभ्योक्षान् मनसा बुद्धिसारथिः मनः कर्मभिराक्षिब्धं शुभार्थे धारयेत् धिया तत्रैकावयवं ध्यायेत् अव्युच्छिन्नेन चेदसा मनो निर्विषयं युक्त्वा
just युक्त्वा
मनो निर्विषयं युक्त्वा तदकिञ्चन न स्मरेत् पदं तत्परमं विष्णो मनो यत्र प्रसीदति रजस्तमोभ्यामाक्षिप्तं विमूढं मन आत्मनः यच्चेत् धारणया धीरो अन्तिया तत्कृतं मलं.
Shobha, ஒரு செகண்ட் Shobha, இந்த 19th ல third line விஷ்ணோஹோ வரும் முக்கியங்க. 19th
விஷ்ணோஹோ எழுதியிருக்கேன், but I couldn't see. Thank you.
Keep going.
Okay. यस्यां संधार्यमाणायां योगिनो भक्तलक्षणः आसु संपत्यते योग आश्रयं भद्रमीक्षतः.
The first line bhakti lakshanah.
நான் சொன்னேன்
bhakta, you said. It's a bhakti.
Oh, sure. Bhakti lakshanah आसु संयत्यते योग आश्रयं भद्रमीक्षतः. राजोवाच यथा संधार्यते ब्रह्मन् धारणा यत्र सम्मदा यादृशी वा हरेदाशु पुरुषस्य मनोमलं. श्रीसुक उवाच जितासनो जिदश्वासो जिदसंगो जितेन्द्रियः स्थूले भगवतो रूपे मनः सन्धारयेद्धिया विशेषस्तस्य देहोऽयं सविष्टश्च स्तवीयसां यत्रेदं दृश्यते विश्वं भूतं भव्यं भवच्च सत् आण्डघोषे शरीरेऽस्मिन् सप्तावर्ण संयुधे वैराजपुरुषो योऽसौ भगवान् धारणाश्रयः. पातालमे तस्य हि पादमूलं पडन्ति पार्ष्णिक प्रदेशसातलं महातलं विश्वसृजोत्तकुल्पौ तलातलं वै पुरुषस्य जङ्के.
No, keep going until 33.
Yeah. द्वेजानुनिस्तुतलं विश्वमूर्तेः ऊरुत्वयं वितलं चातलं च महीतलं तज्जगनं महीपते नभस्थलं नाभिसरो गृह्णन्ति उरस्थलं ज्योतिरनिगमस्य ग्रीवामहवदनं वै जनोस्य तपोरराटिं विदूरादिपुंसः सत्यं तु शीर्षाणि सहस्र शीर्ष्णः इंद्रादयो बाहव आरुषराः कर्णोदिशः श्रोत्रमुमुष्य शब्दाः.
अमुष्य श्रोत्रम अमुष्य शब्दः.
श्रोत्र अमुष्य नवरम. ओके. अमुष्य शब्दः नासयादस्रो परमस्य नासे क्राणोस्य गंधो मुगमग्निरिद्धः द्यौररक्षिणी चक्षुरभूतपदङ्गः पक्ष्माणि विष्णोरहनि उपेच तद्भ्रु विजृम्भ परमेष्टि तिष्ण्यम् आभोस्य तालुरस एव जिह्वा चन्दांस्य नन्दस्य शिरो गृह्णन्ति दंष्ट्रायमस्नेह कलाद्विजानि हासो जनोन्मादकरी च माया दुरंद सर्गो यदपांग मोक्षः व्रीडोत्तरोष्टो धर एव लोभो धर्मस्तनो धर्मपतोस्य पृष्ठं कस्तस्य मेढ्रं वृषणौ च मित्रौ कुक्षि समुद्र गिरियोस्ति संगाः. गिरयोस्ति संगाः नद्योस्य नाड्येद तनूरुहाणि महिर्वा विश्वदनोर्तृपेन्द्र अनंत वीर्य स्वशितं माद आरिष्व गतिर्वय कर्म गुण प्रवाहः.
அந்த லைன் சாரி செகண்ட் லைன்ல வந்து the comma is after matarishva, so anantya virya shvasitam matarishva gatirvaya karma guna pravaha.
Yes adan okay. ananta virya swashitam madarishva gadirvaya karma guna pravaha.
You can stop there. Ananta, okay, not ananta, the first word ananta virya.
Yes
Okay, very good.
ईशस्य केशान् विदुरम्बुवाहान् वासस्तु सन्धयां गुर्वर्य भूमन्न नः अव्यक्तमाहुर्हृदयं मनश्च स चन्द्रमा सर्वविकारकोशः विज्ञानशक्तिं महिमामनन्ति सर्वात्मनोऽन्तःकरणं गिरित्रम् गजानकानि सर्वे मृगाः पशवश्रोणिदेशे पशांसि तत् व्याकरणं विचित्रं मनुर्मनीषा मनुजो निवासः गन्धर्व विद्याधर चारणाक्षरः स्वरस्मृतिरसुरानिगवीर्यः ब्रह्माननं क्षत्रभुजो महात्मा विदुरु अङ्घ्रिकृष्णवर्णः नानाभिधा बीच्य गणोपपन्नो द्रव्यात्मः कर्म विधान योगः.
And the second
द्रव्यात्मः कर्म विधान योगः यानसौ ईश्वर विग्रहस्य यः सन्निवेशकदिदो मया ते सन्धार्यतेऽस्मिन् वपुषि सविष्टे मनस्व बुद्धया न यदोस्ति किंचित्. करेक्टा சொன்னேன்னு தெரியல. सर्वधी वृदत्यनुभूत सर्व आत्मा यदा स्वप्न जनेक्षितैकः तं सत्यम् आनन्त निधिं भजेत नान्यत्र सञ्जेत्यद आत्मपादः.
And the second line नान्यत्र सज्जेत. அதே மாதிரி அந்த go ahead.
Sorry.
அந்த first line வந்து सर्वधी वृत्यनुभूत.
Okay. सर्वधी वृत्यनुभूत.
Vrithyanu, the two it coming there. Vrityanubhuta.
Okay. Oh, Vrithyanu. Sarvadhi Vrityanubhuta. This one. Okay. Ivi Srimad Bhagavate Mahapurane Paramahamsyam Samhitaya Divitya Skandhe Ma Purush Samdana.
Samstanu Varnane Nama Pratamodhyaya.
Okay, அது இல்ல என்னோடதுல. வர்ணனே பிராத்மோத்யாயः. श्रीशुक उवाच एवं पुरा धारणयात्मयोनिः नष्टां स्मृतिं प्रत्यवरुत्यदुष्टात् तदा सर्जेधम् अमोघदृष्टिः यया प्राप्यवसाय बुद्धिः शाप्तस्य हि ब्रह्मणहेश बन्धाः ध्याययति धीर वार्तैः परिभ्रमं तत्र न विन्दतेर्तान् परिभ्रमं तत्र न विन्दते तीर्थान् மாயாமயே வாசனயா ஷயானஹ. அது அந்த டியூன் போயிட்டு
That's okay.
அதற்
Atakkavirnamasu. Yeah, go ahead. No.
அதற்கவிர்நாமசு யாவதர்த்தः ஷ்யாதप्रमत्तो व्यवसाय बुद्धिः सिद्धेन्यदार्थेन यथेत तत्र परिश्रमं तत्र समीक्षमाणः सत्यां श्रिधौ किं कशिपो प्रयासैः बाहौ स्व सिन्धे बाहौ स्व सिन्धे युव बर्हणैः
அங்க இன் சவுண்ட் இல்ல. ஸ்வசித்தே ஹ்யுப பர்ஹனைக்யம்.
அது बाहौ स्व सिन्धे
No in. Just siddhe, double da. Siddhe.
सिद्धे बाहौ स्व सिद्धे युव बर्हणैः किं सत्यञ्चलौ किं पुरुधान्न पार्थ्या धिक्वल्कलाधौ सरिकिं दुकूलैः चीरानि किं पदिन सन्दिदिशन्ति बहु भिक्षां सीरानि किं पदिन सन्दिदिशन्ति भिक्षां नैवाङ्कृभाः परप्रदप्सरिदोऽप्य शुष्यन् रुद्धा गुहुहा किम् अजितो वदि नोपसन्नान् कस्मात् भजन्ति कवयो धनदुर्मदान् तान्. एवं स्वसिद्धस्वद एव सिद्धः आत्मा प्रियोर्दो भगवान् अनन्तः तं निर्वृतो नियधार्थो भजेत संसार हेतु परमश्च यत्र कस्तां त्वनात्रत्य परानुचिन्तां हृदे पशून् असदीं नाम युज्ययात् पश्यञ्जनं पतितं वैधरण्यां स्वकर्मजान् परिधाबान् चुष्टानं केचित् स्वदेहान्तर्हृदयावकाशे प्रादेशमात्रं पुरुषं वसन्तं चतुर्भुजं गञ्जरदाङ्ग शङ्खकदातारं धारणया स्मरन्ति प्रसन्नवक्त्रं नलिनाय देक्षणं कदम्ब किञ्चलक्पिशङ्गवाससं लसन्महारत्न हिरण्मयाङ्कदं स्फुरन्महारत्न किरीटकुण्डलम् उन्नित्रहृत् कर्णिकालये योगेश्वरा स्थापितपादपल्लवम् श्रीलक्ष्मणं कौस्तुभ रत्नगन्धरम् अम्लान लक्ष्म्या वनमालयाचितं विभूषितं मेखलया अङ्गुलीयकैः महाधनैर्नूपुरकङ्कणादिभिः स्निग्धामलाकुञ्चितनीलकुन्दलैः विरोचमाना ननहासपेशलम् अधीनलीला असितेक्षणोल्लसत् बृहुभङ्ग संसुचित भूर्यनुग्रहम् ईक्षत चिन्तामयम् एनम् ईश्वरं यावन्मनोधारण यावतिष्ठते.
Okay. All right, so we have 24 more stanzas left. So let me do, I think I did meaning till 12 on this. We'll continue with a little bit of the meaning. And this is like a very, very complicated topic today, which is very difficult to explain also. And also it's very difficult to understand and even for me to also learn it, right? So I'll try to hit as much as I can. Some of this came in Dashakam 4 of Narayaniyam, but I don't know I think for the first two batches, I may not have said the entire meaning of the Ashtanga Yoga and everything, but for the others, I did. So I think Shobha, I know Sindhuji, Anandji are not here today, but I think for them, I did teach all of that. Anyway, so in the first, anyway, we saw the Virat form of the Lord in the previous chapter, and then a little bit of this. And then as Shukha Brahmam is continuing the story, he talks about the other form of the Lord, like we saw in Prasanna Vakram Nalinaya Tekshanam, how you have to imagine the form of the Lord. But the net, what he's saying is that you have to, at the right point, you have to get your mind focused on the form of the Lord, either on the Virat form of the Lord, or at least very simple, the 4 stanzas in which he described the Chaturbhujam and the smiling face and the pleasant face and the dark blue hue and all that. You think of that form of the Lord. That's what is most important, right? So, and he says, unless you are at a state where you have so much devotional and loving service to the Lord, if you already reached that state, you don't have to worry about thinking explicitly about the form of the Lord. But if you're not in that state, then he says, at least think of this form of the Lord, because that's the only way to get your mind and everything under control. So that is what he's actually explaining here when he's describing this form. So next, he kind of describes through a few things, right? So the first one, he talks about getting into the state of Ashtanga Yoga, right? In this dashakam, he has not described it too much in detail. In this chapter, he has not described it in detail, but it is important to understand what are the various ways you have to go through it, right? So I'll quickly touch on it. So, there are 8 limbs of the yoga. That's why it's called Ashtanga, right? 8 limbs of the yoga. The final state, the 8th one, is the state of Samadhi. But to get to the state of Samadhi, you have to go through one step at a time. And the basic rules on this yoga is you cannot jump to a different step because you find it easier. You have to go through the steps 1 to 8 because it builds on each of it. So the first one is something called as a yama. So yama in a very simple way is how you behave towards others. Think of it that way. Which means I should not behave violently towards others. I should not take others' stuff, right? I should not lie to somebody else. So anything you can actually do which impacts how you're behaving with others is step number 1, yama. The second one is niyama. Niyama is kind of the reverse of it, right? So the principles with which you should live your own life, which is external cleanliness, internal cleanliness, worshipping of God, because all of that is important, right? You have to kind of build the basic foundations, right? So that is the second step, which is the niyama, so which is focusing on yourself. The third is where the state of asana comes. So the asana is the sitting posture, right? So how you need to sit, on what you need to sit. You cannot sit on something which is too hard. You cannot sit on something which is too soft. You cannot sit with your back hunching, right? So there are various yoga asana poses, right, which tells how you have to sit, the Padmasana pose and all of those things, Sukhasana pose, all of that teaches how you need to sit, because you have to be able to get your body sitting for hours together, right, when you're getting to the final state of Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi and everything. So this is building your body. So the yoga asana really comes there. So you can't say, I'm doing yoga and then just do the stretches of the yoga, which is absolutely important. Nobody's saying no, but for the Ashtanga yoga, you have to go through a sequence of paths, right? So anyway, you have to first get your mind cleaned and all that, then you kind of get to the asana portion of it. The next number 4, which that comes, is pranayama. Pranayama is the breathing. So we all do regular breathing, inhaling, holding, external, exhaling and all of that stuff. But this is kind of doing it to an extent where you can actually control your breath. Right? When we do pranayama, we do it to calm our mind or just to get our breath flowing. But this is, you should be able to observe your breath. And the only way you can get to that is by doing it thousands of times over several hundreds of days or whatever number of days, right? Anyway, you have to control your breath. That is a pranayama state, right? That's the number 4 state. Then the 5th state is, now it gets harder. Now this 4, you will say, I kind of know a little bit. I know what you're telling. We may not be there yet, but at least know what you're telling. The 5th state is called as a pratyahara, which is ability to control your senses. So very simple thing, your nose, your eyes, your ears, your mouth, right? When you are praying, let's pick one simple example. So you're praying and then somebody else is in the kitchen, somebody is making some noise, somebody is cooking something, right? Somebody is ringing the bell. Your mind will absolutely get distracted, right? Your ears will get distracted. Your eyes will keep wondering who is coming when I'm chanting. All these things happen, right? You smell something. So pratyahara is when you are doing something, your senses should not be impacted by it. That, very simply put, that's what it is. But it's extremely hard. But that's what pratyahara is. And without pratyahara, you cannot go to the next one, right? So anyway, so this is pratyahara. And the next one which comes is the dharana. So the dharana is even more harder than pratyahara because you are controlling your smell, or you're not impacted by smells, you're not impacted by hearing, you're not impacted by sight and all of that stuff. But then the sixth one, which is there, which is your mind. So even though you sit in front of your God and you are praying and you close your eyes, let's say there's nobody in the house, you have no distractions, so you don't have to worry about the other five things, your mind will still travel and think about a million things. So now how do you not have your mind go to different places? That's the sixth one, which is there, which is pratyahara or dharana, right? That comes. So now the way they say what to do it is, once your mind doesn't go anywhere else, then it says you have to then focus your mind on something. So there, that's what Krishna, when he tells Uddhava in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, also, and many places, they say, you then focus on my form. That's what Krishna says. So this earlier description that Shukabrahman gave, which is describing the form of the Lord, he said, you start focusing on that form of the Lord, right? And you should be able to focus first, he says, when you start thinking about the Chaturbhujam, I think whoever went to Shailaja's house, she must have given you that photo also, right? So you kind of start thinking around that form of the Lord. Now, what happens is you should get to a point where you can zoom out and think of the full form, but you should also be able to zoom in and just focus on the feet, and then just focus on the arms, just focus on the waist, focus on the chest, and keep going from bottom to top, right? You should be able to zoom in and being able to control your mind and being able to focus. That is the sixth one. Then the seventh one, once you finish dharana, once you have control over dharana, then the seventh one is what is called as dhyana. So the dhyana, the difference between dharana and dhyana is, in dharana, you're sitting and you are intentionally focusing your mind on the form of the Lord. In dhyana, you are not intentionally focusing, it is just focusing on its own. So one simple example I always give in the Narayanam class was to say, if you are a wildlife photographer and if a deer is moving fast, you have your camera, you keep your camera lens, you keep moving with the deer. Your still lens is on the deer, but you're moving with the deer, that is dharana, because you are focusing it on its own, on by yourself, right? Dhyana is you are not moving the lens is locked on the deer, and the deer is always in the frame without you having to do anything, right? So that is the state of dhyana, and that you have to reach a state where you first have to think about the form of the Lord and all that, but then you have to get to a state where you don't even have to think about the sattvic form of the Lord. You think about the nirguna form of the Brahman, which is no shape, no form, nothing, which means not thinking about anything but sitting still, right? And anyway, you go through all of these things, and the eighth state is samadhi, where you are now ready to be in union. Now, why these eight things we went through today, which is important, is this is what is required before you go to the next step, right? So what Shukra Brahman is telling Parikshit, this is what you need to do to then liberate yourself, right? So once you now got your mind under control, once you now merged, you are not thinking about anything except the Supreme Lord and everything. You are now in a state of bliss, right? Which is a state of some the dhyana and samadhi, where you have absolutely no distractions. You're not bothered by anything else. You are in that transcendent state, right? We're not thinking about anything else. So now what happens is, now you have breath also under control. So now he says what you next need to do is, it will talk about in samadhi, how do you get your prana vayu out of your body? How will your soul exit your body? Because now you can control your breathing, right? So you have reached that level of perfection that you can do all of these things. Now, there are two bodies. One is the body which we are all in, right? Which is the stula shariram, which has got this flesh and blood and bones and everything. Then there is a sukshma shariram, because the soul cannot travel without a carrier. So this is the carrier that is there when you are incarnating here, but the soul still needs a carrier when it has to exit the body, which is the Sukshma Shariram. Now that carrier which is there, it still has certain layers in it, right? So one is, it still has the ability of the mind, okay? So it can still have the mind, it can think, right? It can analyze, it can do all of that. It has the intelligence, it has that level also. It also has the Sukshma Shariram, it also has the ability to get the five senses going. So you will not have a physical nose. You may not have a nose like this, but you can smell things, right? You may not have an ear, but you can hear things. The Sukshma Shariram can still have all of that. So now that Sukshma Shariram, what you have to do, he says the Prana Vayu, the six chakras that you have to raise your breath, the Prana Vayu, through each of the chakras. Okay. Now, there are 101 nadis which will eventually end up with your Sahasrara chakra. There is a one, the Ida Pingala, there's a middle one called Sushumna. So he says, if your pranavayu exits through any of the other 100 nadis, then you are not going to get liberated. 1 second. Okay. Sorry, 2-minute distractions today. So if it goes through any of the other 100 nadis, you are not going to get liberated. That means you're going to be born again. Okay, you're going to take another birth in this as a human body, right? Or some other being in earth. That's what is going to happen. So what he says is the right way to do it is it should go up straight through the Sushumna Nadi, because then you are guaranteed liberation. So that is the one which then can actually take you up to the right chakra. So we'll see what are the options there. So he says what the right yogi has to do is he has to raise the pranavayu through all of this chakra. He has to come and land it, he or she has to come and land it between the eyebrows, which is the Agneya chakra, because the Agneya chakra is what is kind of gets you to more spirituality and all of that. Then what that person has to do is he has to block all the other outlets, right? And the way they sit is you have to sit so that your feet is covering your bottom, right? And then you have to make sure that your eyes are closed so it cannot exit through your eyes. Your breath is under control, it won't exit through you. Your mouth is shut, it won't go through the ears. I don't know about that. For normal human being, it'll exit through your mouth. The soul will exit through the mouth. But here it is, you bring it, you shut all your openings, and then you bring it to your Agneya chakra, right? And then up to that is one level of maturity. Then there's a second level of maturity where you take it up and leave it through the Sahasrara chakra, which is the top of your head. Okay. So now the reason these two are important is the path the soul will take once it depends on which of the chakra it actually leaves through, right? So here there are two kinds of liberation that they talk about here. One is a liberation where you are saying, I want to eventually go get liberated. I am way more than this human body, but I'm ready to get elevated to the state of the demigods where I have the Ashtasiddhi and all of that stuff. But I'm not quite getting liberated fully yet. That is one state. The second state is I'm fully liberated. I don't see any difference between me and Brahman. I'm just going to merge into the Brahman, right? That's the second state. If it leaves through the Agneya chakra, which is between your two eyes, it still has to traverse through a lot of regions and we'll talk through that a little bit. Or if it goes to the Sahasrara chakra, then you're merging with the Brahman, you're fully getting liberated. You're not having to traverse through any. I think it might still go through some other zones as we talk through it, but essentially you're getting liberated. You are not going to any of the other lokas and all of that stuff, right? So that is the subtle difference between these two. Now, what he then goes on to tell is, once you are kind of going through the Agneya chakra or through the Sahasrara chakra, there is a path that the soul actually takes. It says first it actually goes to what is called as the plane of the sun, which means it doesn't quite exit completely out of this solar system or the galaxy or anything instantly. It first has to go there and wait till because you are now about to get liberated, because both of these can lead to liberation, right? So we are only talking about that scenario where it's leaving through the Agneya chakra or leaving through the Sahasrara chakra. So for that path, it has to go wait until the sun's rays fall on the northern hemisphere, which is the Uttarayana kalam. That's why Bhishma, because he had complete control and he was going to get liberated, he didn't want the soul to be up there waiting, right? So he wanted the soul, he just was ready to be just waiting there in earth, looking at Krishna, waiting for Uttarayana Kalam to come, so he doesn't have to go and pause. So it's like you're going and taking a transit or waiting somewhere, right? So we have one false thing in saying Uttarayana Kalat, if somebody dies, they're sure to get liberation. That's people say that. That is not quite true. It is like to get liberated, at Uttarayana Kalam, your soul should be there at the right spot. That's a prerequisite. But that alone is not sufficient to get liberated. So it's not like you can commit all the crimes you want and then suddenly in the Uttarayana Kalam, your life passes away, you will get liberated. That is not correct, right? But for the soul to get liberated, either your soul, and you've done all these things, if your soul exits at the time of Uttarayana Kalam, otherwise it will wait. Nothing to worry. It will wait at that point for the sun's rays to fall, which will then push it out, right? So anyway, so it then goes to, it says a place, and I think which I forget which stanza, 24 or 25. He says it'll go through like the Vaishwanara, which is kind of the deity of fire, where it actually cleanses you of all the sins because you kind of cleaned up your, everything, right? You kind of really become purified. It purifies you. Then it goes to what is called as a Shishumara. So the Shishumara is kind of the Dhruva Lokam, right? It is the what do you call the polar star, right? Pole star. So it has to go through the Dhruva Mandalam because the Dhruva Mandalam is where the next Vishnu, some of which we'll see later, which is called as the Kshirodakashayi Vishnu. Like I said, there are three types of Vishnus. The Kshirodakashayi Vishnu is like think of it as like a mini Vaikuntham. So when Brahma and Indra and everybody go, they can't go to the Vaikuntham, which is outside, which comes much later in the definition. So we'll see then. So this is like a mini Vaikuntham where Kshirodakashayi Vishnu is there. It has to go, it first goes there, and then it goes through all the lokas, and finally it reaches the Maharloka. So the Maharloka is where all the great sages like Bhrigu, Rishi, and all of these are there. People who have Ashta Siddhis. So their lifespan is 4.32 billion years because it's equal to one kalpa of Brahma. That is their lifespan, right? So you kind of get into that plane and you go to Maharloka. Now, it goes to Maharloka, and then from Maharloka, what happens is in all of these regions, as you kind of go, you are no longer having a physical body. But once you are in these various lokas, the reason it goes through this is it gives you ability to be born again in a higher level. So when we talk about Indra, who lives in the various the Maharloka and all of these lokas where there are beings and there are sages and there are rishis, if you want to take birth as them, you have the ability because you are now in a higher conscious plane. You will not come down to earth. Exceptions, right? Like we'll see a lot of in Krishna Avataram and famous things. We see examples of where people commit sins and then they commit sins at that point and then they get downgraded to a lower level, right? In which case you will get downgraded, but most of the times, majority of the time, you're going up. You're kind of improving your consciousness, your spiritual ability, and you keep going up, right? So anyway, so it'll go sit in Maharlokam and then it'll have two choices. If you reach the level of spiritual maturity, then you will go up, finally sit at Satyalokam, which is where Brahma is, or when the Naimitika Pralaya happens, which is the end of one day of Brahma, all of these people, when the entire world below Satyaloka is going to get eliminated, you will automatically go and sit at Satyaloka. So kind of this is how this progression happens, right? And finally, you will merge and then it will exit the Brahmandam and go, and some of which will come later. But anyway, it talks through this extensive process of what happens and why the net what Shukra Brahman is telling Parikshit is you have 7 days, you still can control everything, and you keep thinking about the Lord at the time of your death. But for others, he's giving it as an example that people who want to kind of go through this Ashtanga yoga practice, which is very complicated, you can still go through that, right? So that is the one last step, and there's one last step, and then we'll get into it. I know there's a little detailed explanations today. So once it is then ready, then we'll see later on when the Brahmandam is getting created, it's got multiple layers. It'll kind of go through each of those layers, it'll start shedding. So think of it, like I told you, the Sukshma Shariram still has layers. So each of the layer has to get shedded, and finally it'll be nothing. Even the identity, because even now you have your individual identity of your soul. That individual identity also will finally get dissolved, and then you'll finally merge into Purusha or the Brahman, at which point there's no more birth or anything, right? Birth or death or anything. So anyway, so that kind of takes it until 30. And then Shukra Brahman wraps it up a little bit, so we'll cover it at that point. All right, so let's start from 13 today. So Priya, you can be a student, and Srividya, you can be a student. Okay. So 13. Ekaikashonghani dhyanubhavayet, padadi yavat dhasitam gadabritah jitam sthanam apohya dharayet, param shuddhyati dhiryatha yatha. Ekaikashongani dhyanubhavayet padadi yabaddhasitam gadabritah jitam sthanam apohya dharayet param shuddhyati dhiryata yatha.
एकैकशोङ्गानि धियानुभावयेत्
पादाति यावद्दीसितं पादाति यावद्धसितं गतावृतः जितं जितं स्थानम् अपोह्य धारयेत् परं परं शुध्यति धीर्यता यथा एकैकशोऽङ्गानि धियानुभावयेत् पादाति यावद्धसितं गतावृतः जितं जितं स्नानम् अपोह्य धारयेत् परं परं शुध्यति धीरयता यथा
धीर्यता यथा
धीर्यता यथा
एकैकशोऽङ्कानि धियानुभावयेत् पादादियावत्तसितं गदाभृतः जितं जितं स्थानमपोह्य धारयेत् परं परं शुध्यति धीर्यता यथा एकैकशोगानि धियानुभावयेत् पादादियावत्तसितं गदाभृतः जितं जितं स्थानमपोह्य धारयेत् परं परं शुध्यति धीरयता यथा
Dhira, you're saying it's dhiryata
Okay,
yata.
धीर्यता. Okay.
Yavanna jayeta paravaresmin, Vishveshware drashtari bhakti yogah tavat staviyah purushasya rupam, kriyavasane prayatasmareta. यावन्न जायेत परापरेऽस्मिन् विश्वेश्वरे द्रष्टरि भक्तियोगः तावत् स्तवीयः पुरुषस्य रूपं क्रियावसाने प्रयतस्मरेत
यावन्न जायेत परावरेऽस्मिन् विश्वेश्वरे द्रष्टरि भक्तियोगः तावत् स्तवीयः पुरुषस्य रूपं क्रियावसाने प्रयतस्मरेत यावन्न जायेत परावरेऽस्मिन् विश्वेश्वरे द्रष्टरि भक्तियोगः तावत् स्तवीयः पुरुषस्य रूपं क्रियावसाने प्रयतस्मरेत
यावन्न जायेत् परावरेऽस्मिन् विश्वेश्वरे द्रष्टरि भक्तियोगः तावत् स्तवीयः पुरुषस्य रूपं क्रियावसाने प्रयतस्मरेत यावन्न जायेत् परावरेऽस्मिन् विश्वेश्वरेष्वे द्रष्टरि भक्तियोगः तावत् स्तवीयः पुरुषस्य रूपं क्रियावसाने प्रयतस्मरेत.
Shivita, and the second word first time is jayeta. Okay.
जायेत. Okay.
Tiram sukham chasanam ashrito yatihi. Put a visarga comma yatihi. Next word yada, the ir goes away. Yada jihasur imamanga lokam kale cha deshe cha mano na sajjayet, pranan niyachen manasa jitasuhu. Sthiram sukham chasanamashrito yatihi yada jihasur imamanga lokam kale cha deshe cha mano na sajjayet प्राणान् नियच्छेन् मनसा जितासुः
स्थिरं सुखं शासनमाश्रितो यतिः यदा जिहासुरिममङ्गलोकं काले च देशे च मनो न सज्जयेत् प्राणान् नियच्छेन्मनसा जितासुः स्थिरं सुखं शासनमाश्रितो यतिः यदा हि हासुरिममङ्गलोकं काले च देशे च मनो न सज्जयेत् प्राणान् नियच्छेन्मनसा जितासुः
स्थिरं सुखं चासनमाश्रितो यतिः यदा जिहासुरिममङ्गलोकं काले च देशे च मनो न सज्जयेत् प्राणान् नियच्छेन्मनसा जितासुः स्थिरं सुखं चासनमाश्रितो यतिः यदा जिहासुरिममङ्गलोकं यदा जिहासुरिममङ्गलोकं काले च देशे च मनो च सज्जयेत् प्राणान् नियच्छेन्मनसा जितासुः.
second mano na sajjayet. Okay.
No, sorry, tappa solrேன். Okay.
Yeah. Manas swa buddhyamalaya niyamya, comma, kshetrajna etam ninayet tamatmani atmanam atmanyavarudhya, one word, atmanyavarudhya dhiro, comma, labdhopashantir virameta krityat मनस्वबुद्ध्या नियम्य क्षेत्रज्ञ एतां निनयेत्तमात्मनि आत्मानमात्मन्यवरुध्य धीरो लब्धोपशान्तिर्विरमेत कृत्यात्
मनस्वबुद्ध्याम् अलया नियम्य क्षेत्रज्ञ एतां निनयेत्तमात्मनि आत्मानम् आत्मन्यवरुध्य धीरो लब्धोपशान्तिर्विरमेत कृत्यात् मनस्वबुद्ध्याम् अलया
என்ன பிரியா
नियम्य.
அங்க அந்த அலையா அப்படி cannot break it because it's புத்திய அமலயா. So மனஸ்வபுத்தியாமலயா அந்த மா.
Okay. Okay. मनस्वबुद्ध्यामलया नियम्य क्षेत्रज्ञ एतां निनयेत्तमात्मनि आत्मानम् आत्मन्यवरुध्य धीरो लब्धोपशान्तिर्विरमेत कृत्यात्
मनस्वबुद्ध्या मलया नियम्य क्षेत्रज्ञ एतां निनयेत्तमात्मनि आत्मानमात्मन्यवरुध्य धीरो लब्धोपशान्तिर्विरमेत कृत्यात् मनस्वबुद्ध्या मलया नियम्य क्षेत्रज्ञ एतां निनयेत्तमात्मनि आत्मानमात्मन्यवरुध्य धीरो लब्धोपशान्तिर्विरमेत कृत्यात्
न यत्र कालो निमिषां परः प्रभुः, comma, कुतो नु देवा जगतां य ईशिरे न यत्र सत्वं न रजस्तमश्च, comma, न वै विकारो न महान् प्रधानम्. न यत्र कालो निमिषां परः प्रभुः कुतो नु देवा जगतां य ईशिरे न यत्र सत्वं न रजस्तमश्च न वै विकारो न महान् प्रधानम्.
न यत्र कालो निमिषां परः प्रभुः कुतो नु देवा जगतां य ईशिरे न यत्र सत्त्वं न रजस्तमश्च न वै विकारो न महान् प्रधानम्. न यत्र कालो निमिषां परः प्रभुः कुतो नु देव्या जगतां य ईशिरे न यत्र सत्त्वं न रजस्तमश्च न वै विकारो न महान् प्रधानम्.
न यत्र कालो निमिषां परः प्रभुः कुतो नु देवा जगतां य ईशिरे न यत्र सत्त्वं न रजस्तमश्च न वै विकारो न महान् प्रधानम्. न यत्र कालो निमिषां परः प्रभुः कुतो नु देवा जगतां य ईशिरे न यत्र सत्त्वं न रजस्तमश्च न वै विकारो न महान् प्रधानम्.
परं पदं वैष्णवम् आमनन्ति तद्, comma, यन्नेति नेतीत्यतत्, you cannot break it till that point, नेतीत्यतत् उत्सिसृक्षवः विसृज्य दौरात्म्यम् अनन्य सौहृदाः, add a visarga and comma here, then दौरात्म्यम् अनन्य सौहृदाः, comma, हृदोपगुह्यार्ह padam pade pade. Next two stanzas are a little bit tough. Param padam vaishnavamananti tad yenneti neti yadat utsisrikshavah visujya dauratmyam ananya sauhridaha hridopaguhyarha padam pade pade.
परं पदं वैष्णवमामनन्ति तत् तद् यन्नेति नेति यत् यतत् उत्तिष्ठवः विसृज्य दौरात्म्यम् अनन्यसौहृदाः सौहृदा
सौहृदाः
सौहृदाः हृदोपगुह्यार्हपदं पदे पदे परं पदं वैष्णवमामनन्ति तद् यन्नेति नेतीत्यतदुत् उत्तितृक्षवः विसृक्ष्य दौरात्म्यम् अनन्य सौहृदाः हृदोपगुह्यार्हपदं पदे पदे
நம்ம ராஜேஸ்வரி ஒரே ஒரு நிமிஷம் எனக்கு கரெக்டா புரியல என் நேதி நேதி ததுத் சிஷ்ருக்ஷவஹன்னு இருக்கா எப்படி அது சொல்லணும் அந்த இடம்
ஆமா
எனக்கு
see, I don't know if your books have netiti atad. Do you have a a word there? A
ஆமா
letter there?
இருக்கு இருக்கு இருக்கு
okay, okay.
நேதி அதத்து
ஆமா I think உங்களோட வந்து they have not joined that thing, right? So netiti atad, when you join it becomes netit yathad. Y letter netit yathad. Okay, so netit yathad utsi srikshavaha, that word is the same.
ஓகே
Okay, I think they've just separated that sandhi, that's all.
ஓகே தேங்க்ஸ்
परं पदं ओके सॉरी परं पदं मामनन्ति तद् यनेति नेतीत्यत्तुत्सि सृक्षवः विसृज्य दौरात्म्यमनन्यसौहृदाः हृदोपगुह्यार्हपदं पदे पदे परं पदं वैष्णवमामनन्ति तद् यन्नेति नेतीत्यत्तुत्सि सृक्षवः
And that's sorry, netit yathad.
यத்தத் அந்த இடத்துல உத்சின்னு மாத்திக்கணுமா?
ஆமா அந்த do is, you have the letter do, right? So
yeah,
it's just easy if you break it. So netit yathad utsi srikshavaha.
okay. परं पदं वैष्णवमामनन्ति तद् यन्नेति नेतीत्यत्तद् उत्सिसृक्षवः विसृज्य दौरात्म्यमनन्यसौहृदाः हृदोपगुह्यार्हपदं पदे पदे
Ittam munis tu paramet vyavastito, vignana drig virya surandhitashayah swa parshninapeedya, one word, parshninapeedya gudam tatonilam, sthaneshu shat sunamaye jitaklamaha. So on the word I'll try to split it, but not too much. Shat sunamaye jitaklamaha. Okay. Ittam munistu paramedyavastito vignana drigvirya suranditashayah swapashnina pidya gudam tato nilam sthaneshu shatsuna-maye jitaklamaha.
इत्थं मुनिस्तु परमेद्यवस्थितो विज्ञानदृग्वीर्यसुरन्दिताशयः स्वपार्ष्णिनापीड्य कुतं ततो निलं तानेषु शून्यमयेज्जितक्लमः
स्थानेषु षड्गुण्य षट्
स्थानेषु षड्
yeah
षट् शून्य
षट्सून्नमयेज्.
इत्थं मुनिस्तु परमेद्यवस्थितो विज्ञानदृग्वीर्यसुरन्दिताशयः स्वपार्ष्णिनापीड्य कुधं ततो निलं तानेषु षट्सून्नमयेज्जितक्लमः
इत्थं मुनिस्तु परमेदव्यवस्थितो विज्ञानदृग्वीर्यसुरन्दिताशयः स्वपार्ष्णीनापीड्य कुतं ततो नीलं स्थानेषु षट्सून्नमये
क्लमः
क्लमः षट्सून्मये क्लमः इत्थं मुनिस्तु परमेदवयोस्त्यवस्थितो विज्ञानदृग्वीर्यसुरन्दिताशयः स्वपार्ष्णिना पीड्य ततो नीलं स्थानेषु षट्सून्नमये चित्तक्लमः.
Here the six referring to the 6 chakras through which you raise the pranavayu. That's the 6 there. Nabhyam sthitam hridyati ropya tasmat. So the du that you have there, we must going to break it. First put a it tasmat, comma udana gatyorasi tam nayen munihi tatonu sandhaya dhiya manasvi, comma swatalu moolam shanakair nayeta. नाभ्यां स्थितं हृद्यधिरोप्य तस्मात् उदानगत्योरसितं नयेन्मुनिः ततोऽनुसन्धाय धिया मनस्वी स्वतालुमूलं शनकैर्नयेत. Just do one time.
नाभ्यां स्थितं हृद्यधिरोप्य तस्मात् उदानगत्योरसितं नयेन्मुनिः ततोऽनुसन्धाय धिया मनस्वी स्वतालुमूलं सनकैर्नयेत.
नाभ्यां स्थितं हृद्यधिरोप्य तस्मात् उद्दानगत्योरसितं नयेन्मुनिः ततोऽनुसन्धाय धिया मनस्वी स्वातालुमूलं शनकैर्नयेत.
Just in this last word, swatalamoolam, not swa, just swatalamoolam. Okay.
Okay. Swatalumolam. Okay.
Second இதுல sorry Rajesh, தஸ்மாத் உதானவ உத்தானவ.
Udana. Yeah, I think that was the other correction. Yeah. So I think you double the you use Srivita. Just udana gatyorasi. Okay.
Okay.
After that comma. Tasmat bruvor antaram unnayeta. You can bruvor antaram unnayeta. You can say it together also. Comma. Niruddha sapta yatanona pekshah. You cannot break that one. Sapta yatanona pekshah. Stitva muhurtardham akuntha drishtihi, comma, visargan, comma, drishtihi, visarga, comma. Next, when there is a ir on top of that ni, or you'll have an r that goes away. Nirbhidya murdhan visrujet param gatah. Tasmad bhruvorantaраmunnayeta niruddha saptayatano napekshah stitva muhurtardhamakuntha drishtihi nirbhidya murdhan visrujet param gatah.
तस्माद् भ्रुवोरन्तरम् उन्नयेत निरुद्ध सप्तायतनोऽनपेक्षः स्थित्वा मुहूर्तार्थमकुण्ठ दृष्टिः निर्भिद्य मूर्धन् विसृजेत् परं गतः.
तस्माद् भ्रुवोरन्तरमुन्नयेत निरुद्ध सप्तायतनोऽनपेक्षः स्थित्वा मुहूर्तार्धमकुण्ठदृष्टिः निर्भिद्य मूर्धन् विसृजेत् परं गतः.
यदि प्रयास्यन् नृप पारमेष्ठ्यं, वैहायसानामुत यद्विहारम् अष्टाधिपत्यं गुणसन्निवाये, सहैव गच्छेन् मनसेन्द्रियैश्च. यदि प्रयास्यन् नृप पारमेष्ठ्यं वैहायसानामुत यद्विहारम् अष्टाधिपत्यं गुणसन्निवाये सहैव गच्छेन् मनसेन्द्रियैश्च.
Sorry, go ahead.
यदि प्रयास्यन् नृपपारमेष्ठ्यं वैहायसानामुत यद्विहारम् अष्टाधिपत्यं गुणसन्निवाये सहैव कच्चेन्मनसेन्द्रियैश्च
यदि प्रयास्यन् नृपपारमेष्ट्यं वैहायसानामुत यद्विहारम् अष्टाधिपत्यं गुणसन्निवाये सहैव गच्छेन्मनसेन्द्रियैश्च.
This is where he's saying that the Vaihayasas are like a little type of a demigod, like the Gandharvas and all of those. So he says this is where you have the opportunity to be like them with the Ashtadipatyam, with the Ashtasiddhi, that capability that you will have, along with Manasa Indriya, all the Indriyangal, Jnanendriyangal, Karmendriyangal, and your Manas. You'll still have all of those intact, but not this body, right? Yogeshwaranam Gatim Ahurantah. Actually, you know what? I put a plus. We can just say it together. Ahurantar bahis trilokya pavanantaratmanam. One word. Pavanantaratmanam. Na karma bistam gatim apnuvanti, comma, vidya tapo yoga samadhi bhajam. योगेश्वराणां गतिमाहुरन्तर्बहिस्त्रिलोक्याः पवनान्तरात्मनां न कर्मभिस्तां गतिमाप्नुवन्ति विद्यातपो योगसमाधिभाजाम्.
योगेश्वराणां गतिमाहुरन्तर्बहिस्त्रिलोक्याः पवनान्तरात्मनां न कर्मभिस्तां गतिम् आप्नुवन्ति विद्यातपो योगसमाधिभाजाम्.
योगेश्वराणां बहिस्त्रिलोक्याः पवनान्तरात्मनां न कर्मभिस्तां गतिमाप्नुवन्ति विद्यातपो योगसमाधिभाजाम्.
So here that's what the saying is. The other thing also is like we said, when you still have the stula shariram that you'll have, but why you may not have this physical body, you can get a body that you want because you can, because you have the Ashtasiddhi. Like that's why we see all these examples of people from other demigods being able to come and interact with others, right? So they can take any form and shape of a body if they want, of a human body if they want, or any other animal body or anything they want, but they are not constrained by the constraints we have with a human body because they still have the Ashtasiddhi. So just because they don't have a Stula Shariram doesn't mean they can't take any other body or any other shape that they want. Vaishwanaram, actually, we'll just switch, okay? Maybe Uma and Amuchichi can be students. Vaishwanaram yati vihayasa gataha, comma, sushumnaya brahma pathena shochisha, vidhuta kalkota harer udastat, comma, prayati chakram nripa shaishumaram. This kind of talking through the path it is going through. Vaishwanaram yati vihayasa gataha, सुषुम्नया ब्रह्मपथेन शोचिषा विधूतकल्कोत हरेरुदस्तात् प्रयाति चक्रं नृपशैशुमारम्.
वैश्वानरं याति विहाय सा गतः सुषुम्नया ब्रह्मपथेन शोचिषा विधूतकल्कोथ हरेरुदस्तात् प्रयाति चक्रं नृपशैशुमारम्. वैश्वानरं याति विहाय सा गतः सुषुम्नया ब्रह्मपथेन शोचिषा विधूतकल्कोथ हरेरुदस्तात् प्रयाति चक्रं नृपशैशुमारम्.
वैश्वानरं याति विहाय सा गतः सुषुम्नया ब्रह्मपथेन शोचिषा विधूतकल्कोथ हरेरुदस्तात् प्रयाति चक्रं नृपशैशुमारम्. वैश्वानरं याति विहाय सा गतः सुषुम्नया ब्रह्मपथेन शोचिषा विधूतकल्कोथ हरेरुदस्तात् प्रयाति चक्रं नृपशैशुमारम्.
तद् विश्वनाभिं त्वतिवर्त्य विष्णोः, that ra you remove put a visarga comma विष्णोः Next word becomes a. Aniyasa virajenatmanaikah. One word. Namaskritam brahma vidham upaiti, comma, kalpayusho yet vibudha ramante. So the Chishumara circle, which is the pole star, the Dhruvalokam, that is the center around which everything else revolves in this universe. So that's why it is called as the Vishwanabhi. It is called as the Nabhi of the Vishnu because it's the center around which everything else revolves. Tad Vishwanabhim tvativartya Vishnoho aniyasa virajenatmanaikah namaskritam brahma vidhamupaiti kalpayusho yad vibudha ramante.
तद्विश्वनाभिं त्वतिवर्त्य विष्णोः अणीयसा विरजेनात्मनैकः नमस्कृतं ब्रह्मविदामुपैति कल्पायुषो यद्विबुधा रमन्ते तद्विश्वनाभिं त्वतिवर्त्य विष्णोः अणीयसा विरजेनात्मनैकः नमस्कृतं ब्रह्मविदामुपैति कल्पायुषो यद्विबुधा रमन्ते
तद्विश्वनाभिं त्वतिवर्त्य विष्णोः अणीयसा विरजेनात्मनैकः नमस्कृतं ब्रह्मविदामुपैति कल्पायुषो यद्विबुधा रमन्ते तद्विश्वनाभिं त्वतिवर्त्य विष्णोः अणीयसा विरजेनात्मनैकः नमस्कृतं ब्रह्मविदामुपैति कल्पायुषो यद्विबुधा रमन्ते
अथो अनंतस्य मुखानलेन कॉमा दन्दह्यमानं स निरीक्ष्य विश्वं निर्याति सिद्धेश्वर जुष्ट दृष्ण्यं कॉमा यत् द्वैपरार्ध्यं तदु पारमेष्ठ्यम् अतो अनन्तस्य मुखानलेन दन्दह्यमानं स निरीक्ष्य विश्वं निर्याति सिद्धेश्वर जुष्टदृष्ण्यं यद्वैपरार्ध्यं तदुपारमेष्ट्यम्
अथो अनन्तस्य मुखानलेन दन्दह्यमानं स निरीक्ष्य विश्वं निर्याति सिद्धेश्वरजुष्टधिष्ण्यं यद्वैपरार्ध्यं तदुपारमेष्ठ्यम् अथो अनन्तस्य मुखानलेन दन्दह्यमानं स निरीक्ष्य विश्वं निर्याति सिद्धेश्वरजुष्टधिष्ण्यं यद्वैपरार्ध्यं तदुपारमेष्ठ्यम्
अधो अनन्दस्य मुखानलेन दन्दह्यमानं स निरीक्ष्य विश्वं निर्याति सिद्धेश्वरजुष्टधिष्ण्यं यद्वैपरार्ध्यं तदुपारमेष्ठ्यम् अधो अनन्दस्य मुखानलेन दन्दह्यमानं स निरीक्ष्य विश्वं निर्याति सिद्धेश्वरजुष्टधिष्ण्यं यद्वैपरार्ध्यं तदुपारमेष्ठ्यम्
न यत्र शोको न जरा न मृत्युः put a visarga comma. Next line there is a ir that goes away, but there is still, if it's Sanskrit, I'm saying there will be 3 irs which are actually coming there. One of them will go away with the visarga mrityuhu. The next one is narthirna chodvega rite kutaschit yachit tatodah kripaya nidam vidam comma duranta dukkha prabhavanu darshanat. So that once it's it says when it comes to the satya lokam, which is the place where Brahma is, so at that point also there is no shokam, no jara, which is old age, or mrityu, none of that stuff, which means once you reach that point you're not going to be born, but you're not quite liberated, which means the union with the Brahman. That has not happened yet, because even Brahma, he has his dviparardham, he has his 100 years, right? So you can still be in that state without having any birth or death, any of that stuff, but you're still not completely liberated, because for that you have to kind of exit even the satya lokam. Na yatra shoko na jara na mrityuh nartirna chodvegarte kutaschit yachit tatodah kripaya nidam vidam duranta dukkha prabhavanu darshanat.
न यत्र शोको न जरा न मृत्युः नार्तिर्न चोद्वेगरिते कुतश्चित् ततोदः कृपया निदं विदां दुरन्तदुःखप्रभवानुदर्शनात्. न यत्र शोको न जरा न मृत्युः नार्तिर्न चोद्वेगरिते कुतश्चित् यच्चित्ततोदः कृपयानिदं विदां दुरन्तदुःखप्रभवानुदर्शनात्।
न यत्र शोको न जरा न मृत्युः नार्तिर्न चोद्वेगहृते कुतश्चित् यच्चित्ततोदः कृपयानिदं विदां दुरन्तदुःखः प्रभवानुदर्शनात्। न यत्र शोको न जरा न मृत्युः नार्तिर्न चोद्वेगहृते कुतश्चित् यच्चित्ततोदः कृपयानिदं विदां दुरन्तदुःखप्रभवानुदर्शनात्।
ततो विशेषं प्रतिपद्य निर्भयः, that is you can remove, put a visarga comma, निर्भयः तेनात्मना पोनल, one word, तेनात्मना पोनल मूर्तिरत्वरन् ज्योतिर्मयो वायुम उपेत्य काले, comma, वाय्वात्मना हाफ्या वाय्वात्मना खम बृहदात्मलिंगम ततो विशेषं प्रतिपद्य निर्भयः तेनात्मना पोनलमूर्तिरत्वरन् ज्योतिर्मयो वायुमुपेत्य काले वाय्वात्मनाखं बृहदात्मलिङ्गम्।
ततो विशेषं प्रतिपद्य निर्भयः तेनात्मना पोनलमूर्तिरत्वरन् ज्योतिर्मयो वायुमुपेत्य काले वाय्वात्मनाखं बृहदात्मलिङ्गम्। ततो विशेषं प्रतिपद्य निर्भयः तेनात्मना पोनलमूर्तिरत्वरन् ज्योतिर्मयो वायुमुपेत्य काले वाय्वात्मनाखं बृहदात्मलिङ्गम्।
ततो विशेषं प्रतिपद्य निर्भयः तेनात्मना पोनलमूर्तिरत्वरन् ज्योतिर्मयो वायुमुपेत्य काले वायुआत्मनाखं बृहदात्मलिङ्गम्। ततो विशेषं प्रतिपद्य निर्भयः तेनात्मना पोनलमूर्तिरत्वरन् ज्योतिर्मयो वायुमुपेत्य काले वायुआत्मनाखं बृहदात्मलिङ्गम्।
घ्राणेन गन्धं रसनेन वैरसं, रूपं तु दृष्ट्या श्वसनं त्वचैव श्रोत्रेण चोपेत्य नभो गुणत्वं, प्राणेन चाकूतिम् उपैति योगी। लॉन्गी घ्राणेन गन्धं रसनेन वैरसं रूपं तु दृष्ट्या श्वसनं त्वचैव श्रोत्रेण चोपेत्य नभो गुणत्वं प्राणेन चाकूतिमुपैति योगी।
घ्राणेन गन्धं रसनेन वैरसं रूपं तु दृष्ट्या श्वसनं त्वचैव श्रोत्रेण चोपेत्य नभो गुणत्वं प्राणेन चाकूतिमुपैति योगी। घ्राणेन गन्धं रसनेन वैरसं रूपं तु दृष्ट्या श्वसनं त्वचैव श्रोत्रेण चोपेत्य नभो गुणत्वं प्राणेन चाकूतिमुपैति योगी।
घ्राणेन गन्धं रसनेन वैरसं रूपं तु दृष्ट्या श्वसनं त्वचैव श्रोत्रेण चोपेत्य नभो गुणत्वं प्राणेन चाकूतिमुपैति योगी। घ्राणेन गन्धं रसनेन वैरसं रूपं तु दृष्ट्या श्वसनं त्वचैव श्रोत्रेण चोपेत्य नभो गुणत्वं प्राणेन चाकूतिमुपैति योगी।
भूत सूक्ष्मेन्द्रिय सन्निकर्षं, मनोमयं देवमयं विकार्यं संसाद्य गत्या सहतेन याति, विज्ञान तत्वं गुण सन्निरोधम्। स भूत सूक्ष्मेन्द्रिय सन्निकर्षं मनोमयं देवमयं विकार्यं संसाद्य गत्या सहतेन याति विज्ञान तत्वं गुण सन्निरोधम्।
स भूतसूक्ष्मेन्द्रियसन्निकर्षं मनोमयं देवमयं विकार्यं संसाध्य गत्या सहतेन याति विज्ञानतत्त्वं गुणसन्निरोधम्। स भूतसूक्ष्मेन्द्रियसन्निकर्षं मनोमयं देवमयं विकार्यं संसाध्य गत्या सहतेन याति विज्ञानतत्त्वं गुणसन्निरोधम्।
सभूतसूक्ष्मेन्द्रियसन्निकर्षं मनोमयं देवमयं विकार्यं संसाद्य गत्या सह तेन याति विज्ञानतत्त्वं गुणसन्निरोधम् सभूतसूक्ष्मेन्द्रियसन्निकर्षं मनोमयं देवमयं विकार्यं संसाद्य गत्या सह तेन याति विज्ञानतत्त्वं गुणसन्निरोधम्
Tenatmanatmanam. So tenatmana atmanam, but a double S is coming, so say it together. Tenatmanatmanam upaiti shantam. So the ma you put a im, comma. Next word starts with a a. Anandam ananda mayovasane. Etam ghatim bhagavatim gato yaha, comma. Savai punarneha vishajyatenga. तेनात्मनात्मानमुपैति शान्तम् आनन्दमानन्दमयो वसाने एतां गतिं भागवतीं गतो यः स वै पुनर्नेह विषज्यतेऽङ्ग. Uma, just one time.
Okay. तेनात्मनात्मानमुपैति शान्तम् आनन्दमानन्दमयो वसाने एतां गतिं भागवतीं गतो यः स वै पुनर्नेह विषज्यतेऽङ्ग.
तेनात्मनात्मानमुपैति शान्तम् आनन्दमानन्दमयो वसाने एतां गतिं भागवतीं गतो यः स वै पुनर्नेह विषज्यतेऽङ्ग.
एते श्रुति ते नृप वेदगीते, कॉमा, त्वयापि पृष्टे ह सनातने च ये वै पुरा ब्रह्मण आह पृष्टः. Because we're going to put a comma there, you have to add a visarga, prishtah, comma. Aradhito Bhagavan Vasudevah. Ete srutite nrupaveda gite tvaya bhiprishte sanatane cha ye vai pura brahmana aha prishtah aradhito Bhagavan Vasudevah.
एते श्रुतिते नृपवेदगीते त्वय्याभिपृष्टे सनातने च ये वै पुरा ब्रह्मण आह पृष्टः आराधितो भगवान् वासुदेवः.
One small correction. First line after the comma, I heard tvayan, just tvaya bhiprishte.
Okay.
Yeah.
एते श्रुतिते नृपवेदगीते त्वया विपृष्टे सनातने च ये वै पुरा ब्रह्मण आह पृष्टः आराधितो भगवान् वासुदेवः.
न ह्यतोन्यश shivah panthaha. Again, add a visarga because you're going to add a comma. Panthaha. Bishatas samsritabiha vasudeve bhagavati, comma, bhakti yogo yato bhavet. न ह्यतोऽन्यः शिवः पन्थाः विशतः संसृताभिः वासुदेवे भगवति भक्तियोगो यतो भवेत्.
न ह्यतोऽन्यः शिवः पन्थाः विशतः संसृताविह वासुदेवे भगवति भक्तियोगो यतो भवेत्.
न ह्यतोऽन्यः शिवः पन्थाः विशतः संसृताविह वासुदेवे भगवति भक्तियोगो यतो भवेत्.
Bhagavan Brahma Kartsnena. So this one, let me just put it. So it's like Kaarts, Kartsnena, Nyena. It's like Siena. Okay, Snena. Difficult, I don't know English on the Kartsnena. Yeah. Kartsnyena. Kind of, it'll go like that. Comma. Triranvikshya manishaya tad adhyavasyat kutastho, comma, rathiratman yatho bhavet.
Rajesh, in the second line, or what?
And the tadadyavasyat, right? That's there, right?
Yeah.
You can say it together, tadadyavasyat, or if you want to break it, it's tad adhyavasyat, whichever you feel comfortable. Okay. So is it tad adyavasyat or tadadyavasyat?
Okay.
Bhagavan Brahma Kasnyena Triranvikshya Manishaya Tadadyavasyat Kutasto रतिरात्मन्यतो भवेत्
भगवान् ब्रह्मकार्त्स्येन त्रिरन्वीक्ष्य मनीषया तदध्यवस्यत्कूटस्थो रतिरात्मन्यतो भवेत्
भगवान् ब्रह्मकार्त्स्येन त्रिरन्वीक्ष्य मनीषया तदद्यवस्यत्कूटस्थो रतिरात्मन्यतो भवेत्
भगवान् सर्वभूतेषु लक्षितस्वात्मना हरिः दृश्यैर्बुद्ध्यादिभिर्द्रष्टा लक्षणैरनुमापकैः भगवान् सर्वभूतेषु लक्षितस्वात्मना हरिः दृश्यैर्बुद्ध्यादिभिर्द्रष्टा लक्षणैरनुमापकैः
भगवान् सर्वभूतेषु लक्षितस्वात्मना हरिः दृश्यैर्बुद्ध्यादिभिर्द्रष्टा लक्षणैरनुमापकैः
भगवान् सर्वभूतेषु लक्षितस्वात्मना हरिः दृश्यैर्बुद्ध्यादिभिर्द्रष्टा लक्षणैरनुमापकैः
तस्मात् सर्वात्मना राजन् हरिः सर्वत्र सर्वदा श्रोतव्यः कीर्तितव्यश्च स्मर्तव्यो भगवान् नृणाम् भगवान् डबल न भगवान् नृणाम् तस्मात् सर्वात्मना राजन् हरिः सर्वत्र सर्वदा श्रोतव्यः कीर्तितव्यश्च स्मर्तव्यो भगवान् नृणाम्
तस्मात् सर्वात्मना राजन् हरिः सर्वत्र सर्वदा श्रोतव्यः कीर्तितव्यश्च स्मर्तव्यो भगवान् नृणाम्
तस्मात् सर्वात्मना राजन् हरिः सर्वत्र सर्वदा श्रोतव्यः कीर्तितव्यश्च स्मर्तव्यो भगवान् नृणाम्
पिबन्ति ये भगवत आत्मनः सतां कथामृतं श्रवणपुटेषु संभृतं पुनन्ति ते विषय विदूषिताशयं व्रजन्ति तच् चरण सरोरुहान्तिकम् पिबन्ति ये भगवत आत्मनः सतां कथामृतं श्रवणपुटेषु संभृतं पुनन्ति ते विषय विदूषिताशयं व्रजन्ति तच्चरण सरोरुहान्तिकम्
पिबन्ति ये भगवत आत्मनः सतां कथामृतं श्रवणपुटेषु संभृतं पुनन्ति ते विषयविदूषिताशयं व्रजन्ति तच्चरणसरोरुहान्तिकम्
पिबन्ति ये भगवत आत्मनः सतां कथामृतं श्रवणपुटेषु संभृतं पुनन्ति ते विषयविदूषिताशयं व्रजन्ति तच्चरणसरोरुहान्तिकम्
इति श्रीमद्भागवते महापुराणे पारमहंस्यां संहितायां द्वितीयस्कन्धे पुरुषसंस्थावर्णनं नाम द्वितीयोऽध्यायः
इति श्रीमद्भागवते महापुराणे पारमहंस्यां संहितायां द्वितीयस्कन्धे पुरुषसंस्थावर्णनं नाम द्वितीयोऽध्यायः
इति श्रीमद्भागवते महापुराणे पारमहंस्यां संहितायां द्वितीयस्कन्धे पुरुषसंस्थावर्णनं नाम द्वितीयोऽध्यायः.
So I said meaning up to 30. There's still like more 6 more stanzas, 7 more stanzas to just summarize, right? So when Chikaprabhu is explaining this whole process, finally he says in Satyaloka, and then whenever you're ready, when you're spiritually ready to be ready for the union, you then get merged into the Lord. Now, there could be scenarios where somebody never reaches that state, right? Because whether you are in this earth or whether you go through this process and go to Satyaloka, whenever you are ready spiritually, conscious wise, when you now feel one with the Lord truly, at that time you will merge with the Lord. There's no doubt about it. It is only that till you reach that point, you go through these various levels of existence to get to that point. If you never reach that point, you don't have to worry. Eventually, at the end of Brahma's life, everybody is anyway going to go and get merged, right? So at that point, you'll be there somewhere and you'll get merged. That's what the summary of this thing is, right? But however, Shukra Brahman then also tells that whatever I have told you, O Parikshit, is not something I am telling. This is something which is the truth, which is the Vedas. And he says this was personally told by Vishnu, by Narayana to Brahma after Brahma went to the tapasans. That is all going to come later because, like I said, the whole Bhagavatam was only 4 stanzas. 4 stanzas that Vishnu tells Brahma. That's Bhagavatam. When it gets transferred from one person to another to explain it like a pyramid, it keeps growing up and becoming 18,000 stanzas, right? So he says this is exactly what Vishnu told Brahma. So you know this is the truth, right? He says, and there's absolutely no doubt that unless you truly get the devotion, you will never get fully liberated. You might exit, the soul may exit this body, and you might get your Ashta Siddhi, you might get all of that stuff, but for complete liberation, unless you truly you have the pure bhakti and you merge with a Lord, till that point there's absolutely no liberation. So that's what he's saying, that the Krishna or Narayana is there in every soul and every single thing, and until you realize that you're all part of the one, there is absolutely nothing. And of course in the end, he says that 36, he says that every essential, that every human being, everybody hears about it, glorifies it, remembers it, Shrotavya, Kirtitavya, Smartavya, Bhagavan Ranam. Every single time, every single place should always be thinking about the Supreme Lord. There is absolutely no exception to that, right? And eventually in the end he says the one who can drink, pibantiye, the one who is able to drink through their ears, because like I said, Bhagavatam is all about hearing, right? So he says one who can hear through their ears this the sweet nectar message of Krishna, eventually all the pollution in their life will go away, they'll purify, and eventually they'll attain the lotus feet of the Lord. So with that, Shukra Brahman ends this chapter. Shri Krishnaya Parabrahmane Namaha, Shri Hare Namaha, Shri Hare Namaha, Shri Hare Namaha. Gopika Jeevana Smaranam Govinda Govinda. Sadgurunath Maharaj Ki Jai. काहेन वाचा मनसेन्द्रियैर्वा बुद्ध्यात्मना वा प्रकृते स्वभावात् करोमि यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि. Thank you, everyone. The next two
Thank you, Rajesh.
chapters are pretty small and simple ones, so you should be able to run faster then.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rajesh.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rajesh.